This week in games, CD Projekt lays off 9% of its workforce. Sakurai says Super Smash Bros. Without him is a no-go. Capcom has a game coming out early next year that will sell millions. And Insomniac is working on a third game. This is the Two Penny Gamescast. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 158, and I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Phil Shoemaker.
Hello, I'm not Connor.
You're not Connor. Phil, thank you again for stepping in again for the Gamescast. Connor, out having a party weekend. He's out with a bunch of friends going to an anime convention, Anime Con, and he's having a great time out there. He was hitting us with a lot of great text messages last night.
Con is at a con.
Con is at a con. So we're letting him party and so forth out here. And Phil, you so graciously stepped in to fill the co-host shoes. Thank you so much for doing that, my friend. How has your week been?
Pretty good. That's why they call me Phil. It's been pretty good. Tavin, I don't know if you know this. This is my first podcast as an engaged man.
You got engaged!
I did.
Congratulations, my friend.
Yep, it's true.
Fantastic news. So excited for you. So excited for your future.
Me and my lovely girlfriend Ashley got engaged. She's now my fiance.
That is how those titles work. You know?
Yep.
I'm very excited for you, my friend. I went and told my girlfriend. She was immediately bombarding me with questions, and I was like, and I did the man thing where I was like, all I know is he sent a text in the group chat. That's all I know. He sent a text. We said congratulations. He said thank you. That was the extent of the conversation.
End of story. End of exchange.
Yeah. And I know just as many details now as I did then.
Women, right? Women.
Yeah, right? Anyways, but once again, congratulations, my friend. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
But, ladies and gentlemen, we're not here for just that. We are here to talk about the new news concerning the video game industry, just like we do every week. We're usually me and Connor, but this time me and Phil sit down and we give you the news you need to know concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with two topics, two pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. You can catch the show every Monday at 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. Just search up 2 Penny Gamescast on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. Follow us on all of our socials and on TikTok. Links are in the description. Thank you so much. And watch us live over at twitch.tv/2pennygames. And if you're watching the YouTube version, make sure to comment down below and talk about your favorite story of the week, a conversation you'd like us to have on the podcast. We'd like an audience 2 pennies just as much as we bring our own 2 pennies into the conversation. But, Phil, enough of that. It's time to start talking about all the great news. And unfortunately, as is a common trend on this podcast, we have to talk about some bad news. Some news that we don't always love talking about, but it's important. And it involves the people who make the games that we love so much. So, it's important that we start off with the news that The Witcher and Cyberpunk developer CD Projekt to lay off 9% of its workforce. This is from IGN by Wesley Ian Poole. This is my first topic of the day. My first penny. CD Projekt has announced plans to lay off nearly 10% of its workforce. The Witcher and Cyberpunk developer called the round of layoffs, which impact around 100 staff, and, quote, alignment of the scale and size of the team with the requirements of ongoing projects and the CD Projekt Group strategy, end quote. The layoffs affect those in development, publishing, and back office teams, and are expected to conclude in the first quarter of 2024. Quote, the decision is related to the continuing transformation as part of which the CD Projekt Red Studio has managed to, among others, incorporate agile methodologies while reshaping development process and optimizing working arrangements, the company said in a statement. Quote, this change in approach, along with the efforts to build more effective project teams, represents a continuation of an ongoing transformation, which the company regards as key to making top quality games, published on schedule and developed without undue crunch. CD Projekt said the estimated cost of the layoffs, which includes severance payments, is 4.5 million PLN, approximately $1.1 million in American. CD Projekt boss Adam Kaczynski issued an accompanying statement insisting the company is currently overstaffed. Quote, we've carefully assessed all teams in the company in terms of their expected contribution to the delivery of our strategy, Kaczynski said. Quote, there's no easy way to say this, but today we are overstaffed. We have talented people on board who are finishing their tasks, and based on current and unexpected project needs, we already know we don't have other opportunities for them in the next year. Quote, the outcome in the studio, parting ways with around 100 people, which is roughly 9% of the entire team. This will not be immediate, as some employees will be let go as late as Q1 2024, but in the spirit of transparency, we've chosen to share the information now. We want team members to have ample time to process and adjust to the change, and we've also made sure to offer everyone a comprehensive severance package. Finally, I would like to address affected CDPR team members reading this message. Although our paths will diverge professionally, I believe the relationships we have built can remain strong. I encourage you to stay connected and would like to thank you for being an invaluable part of our journey. Your impact will resonate with CD Projekt Red, and we wish you nothing but success and fulfillment in the next chapter of your professional lives. CD Projekt will release the Cyberpunk expansion Phantom Liberty on September 26th. It has a number of other projects in the works, including a remake of the first Witcher game, its first original IP, Project Hadar, a Cyberpunk sequel, Project Orion, the first game in a new trilogy set in the Witcher universe, Project Polaris, and a multiplayer Witcher game, Project Sirius. This round of layoffs will follow the May announcement that CD Projekt Red would lay off around 30 employees by the end of 2023 as development of Gwent, the Witcher card game, came to an end. So, CD Projekt laying off about 9% of its workforce, around 100 people, mostly hitting development, publishing, and back office work. This is unfortunately a common trend in the games industry, and you see it a lot in just entertainment as a whole, where we'll bulk up, we'll get a bunch of people loaded in to get this huge project underway and get it developed and out the door, and then we have to scale down because we no longer have work for you, so we unfortunately have to lay off a bunch of people. That
was like a common thing in Jason Schreier's book that I read I think it was this past year or last year, I can't remember, but it was all about the game industry and different titles and how game development really works, because like they talk about how you build up a team and then somewhere like maybe 3/4 of the way through you start talking about how you're gonna cut ties, or not necessarily cut ties, but like just, hey, we don't have anything else for you. We're moving a certain number of people to this other project. Well, this other people finish this one, but we don't have another place for you. And it's unfortunate, but just how it goes.
It is. You do see less of it now than you used to. It used to be essentially entire teams would go, and now it's limited to smaller numbers of people. But it's just sort of an unfortunate necessity right now in how business is done in this industry. I don't particularly care for it. I would love if people had regular jobs and could build careers with one company for as long as they want, but even in regular business, layoffs happen across the world. This one is a little more schedulable. Like, you can kind of see it coming a little bit. And right. CD Projekt is doing the right thing in that, saying, hey, when Phantom Liberty ships, I'm sorry, bro, we don't have anything for you. Or, when work on a different project gets to a certain progress point, hey, man, we got to let you go.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that it's important is transparency, like they said. Just 100%. Being super upfront, being like, hey, giving you enough time to try to find something else because we don't have anything else for you here.
100%. I'm right there with you. And I think CD Projekt is doing the right thing here. It is shocking that 100 people is 9% of its workforce. That team is huge. That's a huge team. I think Naughty Dog right now is sitting at somewhere 300, 400 people. Insomniac has 2 different development studios, and I think it's like 300 people or something like that. And so for CD Projekt Red, I mean, you can just do the math yourself. 100 people, about 9%. That's over 1,000 people.
Naughty Dog has 497.
Oh wow, yeah, they've grown quite a bit. Well, I'm sure once they've put out whatever next game they have or
Yeah, and
whatever.
then Insomniac Games grows to over 520.
And that makes sense with a story that we're going to talk about a little later down the line. And then where was the quote? This change in approach, along with efforts to build more effective project teams, represents a continuation of an ongoing transformation, which the company regards as key to making top quality games published on schedule and developed without undue crunch. Mm-hmm. So we're not eliminating crunch, but we are trying to limit it a little more.
Right, it's from what I understand, it's like expected crunch. Like, hey, we're already planning on crunching here. There's no like last minute, hey, stay for the weekend or whatever. Like there's nothing like that.
Yeah,
which is what it seems like.
I think it's essentially what is happening now is CD Projekt is at a scale and a level to where crunch is unfortunately something that they can't get rid of 100%, even though we would all like it to happen, and I'm sure people on the inside feel one way or another about it. But crunch is a cultural problem within the games industry.
Right. I was gonna say, yeah, it's not limited to just CD Projekt. It's all over.
It's a mindset. It's something that is expected. It's something that many take pride in, that they're able to work 60, 70, 80, 100-hour work weeks, when in truth, that's really not healthy at all.
Right.
So it's really based around, to eliminate it completely, when you're a publisher and a developer of this size, you need to change how you do business drastically. And for that to happen, workers would, one, need to unionize, and just the entire sort of way that the industry works as a whole would have to change dramatically. And
right,
I don't know how to do that. I imagine it would be at the cost of we don't get games nearly as often, and they probably in some cases probably won't look as good because at some point money runs out
right,
and you got to put a game out. But I would rather all my dev teams be happy and healthy than have experiences like your Last of Us Part 2s or your Red Dead Redemption 2s, which were heavily in the news for heavy crunch, or with disastrous launches like CD Projekt Red's own Cyberpunk 2077. Or they're successful with The Witcher 3, which I'm sure they had to crunch just as hard for that as well. It's just a thing of to my knowledge, I've never heard of it, and I believe I've heard Insomniac works really hard so that their people don't have to crunch. And that's a bit of a conversation that we'll have later on, but Insomniac doesn't put out 10 out of 10 games. They put out 8s and 9s consistently. Always 8s and 9s, but they've never put out a 10 out of 10. And we'll see if Spider-Man 2 changes that conversation. But I think the reason for that is that they work really hard not to crunch. And that comes at the shortcomings of you just don't get quote-unquote masterpieces from them.
Yeah.
You get some of the best quality games in the industry consistently and at a regular rate, but you just don't get your Last of Us Part 2s, like for example.
Sure. It's actually interesting that you mentioned Insomniac there, because when I think of crunch, I think of like old Insomniac, like them with the Ratchet series. And there was that quote that was talking about if you don't work weekends, you don't have a place here in Insomniac. Like that was a quote from somebody, I can't remember exactly who, but that was like the vibe.
Yeah, and that's a general vibe in heavy duty games industry development studios around the world. Let me double check.
I just think it's interesting that
not talking
has changed.
So from a Reddit thread I'm reading, developers at Insomniac say there were no crunch for Rift Apart.
It's good.
Insomniac scaled back Marvel's Spider-Man boss to... this is from pushsquare.com. Pushsquare, please. I agree to your cookies. Please. Yeah. Marvel Spider-Man cut back on Marvel's Spider-Man boss to cut down on crunch, and entire planets were cut from Ratchet and Clank games in order to, get them out the door without crunching things. So Insomniac works hard to not have that, and that's a sign of progress.
Changed.
Yeah, that's a sign of progress. Changed. So good on them, and I think honestly, just by the end of it all, good on CD Projekt for this individual story right here. They're doing things the right way, even though it's sort of a necessary evil that they're working around here. Right. But Phil, let's talk about necessary evils maybe, and jump into our next story of the day. Your first, Penny. We got some Smash Bros and Sakurai. Interesting little tidbits here. So take this away right here.
Yeah. So Masahiro Sakurai says he can't really imagine a Smash Bros title without me. It's a quote from him. Masahiro Sakurai, the creator of the Super Smash Bros. Series, is famous for his extremely...
This is from The Verge by Jay Peters.
Sorry. Yeah, I forgot that part.
Take that
from The Verge by Jay Peters. Yeah. Masahiro Sakurai, the creator of the Super Smash Bros. Series, is famous for his extremely hands-on role in developing the games. But even though he said in the past that he's done, quote, too much of the work myself on the series, in a new video, he said that he, quote, can't really imagine a Smash Bros. Title without me. Sakurai made the statement as part of a video on his YouTube channel about the development of the Super Smash Bros. Of Super Smash Bros. Brawl for the Nintendo Wii. That was the first Smash Bros. Title where Sakurai as a freelance director instead of as a staffer for HAL Laboratory. During the video, Sakurai pondered how Nintendo might structure a team for a potential next entry in the Smash Bros. Series, and his fears that there isn't one person who can take over from him. I'm just gonna... then they transcribe exactly his quote. The question now is what happens next time. I mean, whatever comes after Smash Bros. Ultimate. One option would be the separate series itself from the original creator, but for now at least, I can't really imagine a Smash Bros. Title without me. You might think that's a natural stance for someone in my role, but I say so speaking objectively. I feel the same way President Satoru Iwata did when we formed the team for Smash Bros. Brawl. At present, we don't have someone who can simply take the reins. Smash Bros. Is a massive, important title for Nintendo, so it's fair to assume there will be another one at some point. But it's going to take some work to figure out exactly how to make that happen. For my part, I'd like to keep working with Nintendo however I'm able. So I love Masahiro Sakurai. He's very, very talented. I think he's the director of Smash Bros., right?
Yes.
Basically?
Yeah, he's been the director of every Smash Bros. Title.
Extremely. They kind of word it different, or word it weirdly here. They say that Brawl was his first one, but I'm fairly certain he was there the entire time.
No, first one as a freelance.
As a
director,
freelance, gotcha.
Not as just
instead of a staffer,
salary staffer. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think he's super talented. You can tell that he's super passionate about Smash Bros. As a project. I personally, I have no idea who they would get to take the reins. If not Sakurai again, because Ultimate, I don't even know how you iterate upon Ultimate, because I feel like Ultimate itself is like the perfect Smash game.
Well, the thing about it is that the audience is quite satiated right now, because we have Ultimate, which is the biggest and I would argue the best version of Smash Brothers we've ever gotten. There's certain modes and things from previous titles that I would like to be in Ultimate, but the size and scope of Ultimate just makes it too big for those modes to exist. I'm talking things
Subspace.
like Subspace, but they kind of tried a new thing with the Spirit.
The World of Light. Yeah.
The World of Light mode or whatever. Which I'm really talking like there was more intentional, more like directed content around each character. You look at like Melee's Break the Targets.
Oh,
for example, where they crafted levels around everybody. And
right.
Those just kind of can't exist now because you have 80-something characters on a roster. It's just too much. Like, it would just require too much dev time and too much work. And then also, like, the biggest and baddest Smash game on Nintendo's, one of Nintendo's most successful consoles ever, which is the Nintendo Switch, still selling like hotcakes. I don't see a need for a new Smash Bros. at least until a new console launch, maybe like a Switch
Right.
2 or anything like that.
I
Or
can't
whatever's
imagine we
next
get
on the table.
one. I can't imagine we get one still on just the Switch. It has to be
No.
like whatever Switch 2 is going to be.
No, and even in that, a Switch 2, I imagine they would just remaster Smash Bros. Ultimate, put it on that. Maybe it's backwards compatible. Maybe it's
Drop some new characters, maybe. I don't know.
And I would imagine just like a port of some kind, and then you just drop some more characters,
Like a new fighter pass.
a new fighter pass or two, or some new maps or something, like just to kind of keep that content rolling. Much like how we've seen Mario Kart 8 take its success from the Wii U, which was a much more limited install base, to the Switch. Now, granted, that's a little different. Mario Kart's bigger than Smash Brothers is, and
Has a wider reach for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and that kind of worked for that. But Smash Bros. Ultimate starting on Switch, moving over to a Switch 2, and adopting that same model, I don't know how people would feel about that. They might feel a little cheap about that, but at the same time, do we really want to risk another Smash Bros. Game without the 80-something characters that we have on it right now? I don't know if we do. Because there's no guarantee that Cloud and Sora make it to the next Smash Brothers game, guys. Like, there's no guarantee. And I love that everybody's there, personally. So I'll take Smash Ultimate ports and remasters till the day I die.
Absolutely. No, I entirely agree. Like, give me Smash, put it directly into my veins.
Exactly. But this does offer new outlets that we could go down that do sound interesting. What does a Smash Brothers look like not directed by Sakurai? What is an art style? What is the basis of the combat in that? What would a roster of that look like? Maybe we pare it down.
It would have to be, they would definitely like trim some of the huge fat that's on that roster.
Hey man, we pare down to, I don't know, 15 to 20 characters.
I was going to say 20, yeah.
We give it a new art style, we give it new function, and we have incredibly different modes that we've never seen before. That would be interesting. It would be interesting to see.
What if they gave us a Z axis like Tekken?
It's a potential world that we could live in that would be interesting to explore. Would I personally want that? I don't know. But
I don't think so.
I'm not sitting here saying don't do it, like out of the off rip. It reminds me of stories from, the only other like franchise that you can think of that is so closely associated with its creator like this, at least to this same level that I can think of, is Metal Gear with Kojima. And it's funny because every single Metal Gear game was supposed to be the last one until they kept coming out with more, and he just kept agreeing to do it. But I think of stories about Metal Gear Solid 4 about how he was not supposed to direct that game. He was going to be on as like a producer and I think maybe write the story, but I forget the exact details. But they were going to have a different director on board for Metal Gear Solid 4, and the internet went aflame. And like, classic internet shit, bunch of death threats, bunch of like garbage human beings doing a bunch of garbage things. You're talking 2006 or something at this point. So like, the internet is much more toxic at this point than maybe you could argue it is today, but it's hard to tell. There was a lot less awareness of like people doing bad things on the internet than there is today, for example. And they sort of kind of bullied Kojima into directing that game. And you kind of feel it. With a lot of the themes that get explored in that game and sort of the gameplay direction of that game, it feels stiff, it feels stifled, it feels like they wanted to go in different directions, but they kind of got forced into delivering key expectations for Metal Gear games, and then it kind of like opened the floodgates, and every Metal Gear we had after that was different than the original Metal Gear games or Metal Gear Solid games that we all know and love.
Yeah, fuckers, you want me to come back? Guess what? Vamp's not actually dead. Here you go.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Oh, dude, there's so much more that you don't even know. But we'll get there one day, hopefully, with the Game Club. So, but my whole point of bringing the Kojima thing forward is Metal Gear Solid 4 probably would have been more interesting and maybe even a better game if Kojima wasn't at the helm of it. It's an impossible thing to ponder because we just don't know. And so now we sit here and we go, well, do we just want to force Sakurai to make Smash Brothers again and again and again? I don't know. The big difference here is Sakurai doesn't feel like there's anybody to take the reins. Kojima clearly felt different back in the day.
Well, also we talk about like forcing him. He's obviously not going to feel forced. Like he knows, like he's not in the same boat as Kojima, where Kojima was like, "Hey, I this is the last one."
Yeah.
But Masahiro Sakurai, he's obviously like, yeah, obviously there's going to be more. I want to keep doing it. Like he's not. That's a different feeling, you know? Because Kojima obviously is.
It's not so much I want to keep making Smash Bros. It's I know, companies and capitalism and the way it works. There's going to be more. The series is too successful to not have more.
Yeah, but I read it as more like he's okay with it. Like he doesn't have a problem with it, you know?
His stance on it, on the reading, is if Nintendo wants me to do it, I'll do it. Yeah. But he has said Ultimate is the magnum opus.
Right. Everyone is here.
Ultimate is his final statement on Smash Brothers. I don't know if he has any more ideas to evolve Smash as a title past what he's already done. I think he's kind of, he's drained the well, sort of. Like he's just like, I don't know, more characters? Sure. Which again, I'm personally down for, but is that what we want from Smash Brothers as a whole? Do we want more evolution? Do we want a new take on a 20-year franchise? These are questions that we should explore. Maybe we do, maybe we don't.
Maybe we do, maybe we don't.
Moving on to topic number 3, my second penny of the day. Capcom has an unannounced game that is expected to sell millions before 2024. We are pulling from comicbook.com by Mark Deschamps. Excuse me. I gotta learn to stop drinking sparkling waters on the podcasts, Phil, because it just makes me a little burpy with the
just makes you burpy.
It makes me a little burpy, but they're so delicious and they're so much more fun than just regular water. I did bring both. I brought both, mostly because I was like, I really want something tasty. I'm drinking a peach bubbly right now. This is one of my favorites. Anything peach, I'm all about. You know what I mean? But yeah, peach bubbly. Shout out. Anyways, Capcom. Unexpected game or unannounced game expected to sell millions before March 2024. This year has been a big one for Capcom, with games like Resident Evil 4, Street Fighter 6, and Exo Primal finding a lot of commercial success. It seems the publisher still has some surprises in store, as it has revealed from financial statements that it acquired developer Sword Cane's studio. Apparently, Sword Cane's studio has been involved with 3 of the biggest games of the year: Final Fantasy 16, Hi-Fi Rush, and Capcom's Street Fighter 6. The studio is fairly small, having just 22 employees, but it's currently working on an unannounced game, which Capcom expects would sell millions by March next year. Naturally, Mochizuki's tweets about Sword Cane Studio have prompted a lot of speculation on Twitter. The majority of the employees at Sword Cane Studio are animators, and the small size of the team has led some to believe that this could be a brand new iteration in the Ace Attorney franchise. While the series doesn't sell on the same level as Capcom's biggest, Ace Attorney trilogy did sell more than 2.1 million copies, according to Capcom's investor relations website. However, Capcom already has Apollo Justice Ace Attorney trilogy set to release in early 2024, and it seems unlikely the publisher would drop 2 games in the series that close to one another. Given Sword Cane Studios' history as a support team, it's possible they're actually working on something big alongside one of Capcom's other internal developers. In that case, the game could end up being a bigger name such as Resident Evil or Monster Hunter. There's simply no way to know for sure, but given Capcom's expectations, it will likely be announced sometime in the very near future. And then I'm going to cut it right there, and we're going to talk about that. Phil, you mentioned it already. You joked with me on Twitter about it. Capcom, you think Mega Man, and I say no way in hell. No way in hell. There's a Mega Man something in the works. Like, there's always a Mega Man something in the works. But a brand new Mega Man game would not sell millions, and we would know about it by now.
Come on. It would. I would buy 1 million copies.
It would it would sell like an Ace Attorney would sell, and you'd get 2 or 3 million maybe. But we're talking...
That's still millions.
It is still millions, but we're talking the 7, 8, 10, 12 million range or something like that. And as of right now, as the article says, that's either Resident Evil or Monster Hunter, one of those two. Since we just got Resident Evil 4, now granted, it's been a couple years since Village. It's been a couple years since, the RE2 and RE3, so which were back to back, and then Village was shortly after that. So it's more than possible that we have another Resident Evil around the corner for next year, but I doubt it. Not this early. Not a back-to-back like that.
Do you remember from, I think it was either a week ago or a couple weeks ago, I'm just remembering this now, there was a talk on Twitter where someone leaked, there was like a leaker that talked about when Resident Evil 9 was coming out, and it was like expected like 2025 or something like that. But is this a game for next year? Oh, it says before March.
Yeah, before March 24. But that doesn't ring any specific bells for me, which probably means that I read it and dismissed it. I was like, we'll see, But I mean, all of that's a huge grain of salt with this industry. Like you just
Sure.
you're like, I don't know, maybe that's probably an is there an expected 2025 Resident Evil game? Probably. Probably they expect to have another Resident Evil 5 or another Resident Evil game by 2025. As of right now, if I were a betting man, I'm putting this 100% on Monster Hunter. We had Monster Hunter Rise, last year before, and then we had ports to Switch this year.
Year before last, yeah.
Or no, we had ports to PS5 and Xbox this year. And then, which Monster Hunter Rise did well, but
yeah, 2021.
I think more than anything, the big one is Monster Hunter World 2 of some kind.
Oh, you know what else was crazy about when Monster Hunter Rise came out? March 2021.
There you go. When did Monster Hunter World come out? I want to say that was a summer game in 20.
Go on.
17?
18.
2018? Yeah,
January 26, 2018.
Wow. Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, Capcom does like to release a lot of their games early in the year. Resident Evil 4 was in March, I believe. Capcom or Street Fighter 6 was
April.
Mm-hmm. I want to say something like that. Shortly after, and so clearly Capcom likes that window of early in the year, and so yeah, this makes sense. There's probably a game loaded up for next year, but we've blown our load with Resident Evil and with Street Fighter. We don't necessarily need entries in either of those. The only other thing that I could think of is maybe a Devil May Cry, which would be exciting, especially for guys like Connor. But I'm putting my money on Monster Hunter. Like, that franchise blew up. It was always big, but it blew up with Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter Rise did well. I think it's time for another huge, gigantor, sprawling map, Monster Hunter World 2, Monster Hunter World sequel of some kind.
What was the Monster Hunter game that came out for 3DS? Because that's whenever I really started seeing it get big in the West.
Couldn't tell you.
3DS.
But yeah, so sometime in the 3DS and Wii era, Monster Hunter started doing okay numbers out here. But yeah, World was another level of success. It was ridiculous. So yeah, it's I think it's time for Rise was already in the can when World's success happened. I think it's just time for another one of that scale, which is exciting. I've personally never been a big fan of Monster Hunter. I don't like I just don't like the way it feels to control in those games, and the way it feels to hit things in that game doesn't really work for me. But it's huge. Connor has said he's had a lot of fun with Monster Hunter Rise playing with his friends lately.
I think it was Monster Hunter 4.
Probably something like that.
Or
I couldn't tell you.
It was 4 Ultimate.
Yeah. Again, I couldn't tell you. I don't have a lineage or a history with that franchise, but
me either.
It doesn't make sense to launch a Resident Evil anything next year. Like,
sure,
we can wait, hit us with some DLC, remake the DLCs of 4, and give us all those side the Ada missions that were launched with the game that are not in the remake right now. Give us those. That would be great. And just some more content in that. Maybe Mercenaries mode. I would like to play a Mercenaries mode with the RE4 remake gameplay and engine and stuff like that. That would be really fun. if you could even make that like a co-op experience like back in the day as sort of a test bed for what could potentially be a Resident Evil 5 remake, that would be dope too. So
Sure.
I just don't need a mainline title from Resident Evil right now. I'm okay. I'm satiated as a fan. I'm full. Devil May Cry, whether that be a DMC 6 or a DMC remake or DMC anything, that would be welcome as well. I think that'd be fun and exciting because it's been quite a few years, 2018, 2019, since DMC 5.
I think it was 18.
Yeah, it was something like that. And that game was great. I had a lot of fun with that game. I'd like some more. Connor keeps, telling me that I got to go back and play the old ones, and I just never do because it's hard to play games and have time
Right.
and do stuff and so forth. As I have just collected my 82nd platinum trophy in Skyrim PS5 edition. I'm so full of shit. Anyways,
Didn't you get Power Wash again?
I also that was what 82 was. 82 was
Yeah,
Power Wash
81
Simulator
was
on
Skyrim.
PS5. 81 was Skyrim on PS5. And then was 80 was Sly 3. 79 was Skyrim on PS4. 78 was Power Wash on PS4. I'm putting up numbers on the board this year, man. Let me tell you what.
You are. Not to the same extent that I was last year, but
Last year you were crazy, but I told you, man, those first 50 go by in a flash. And
all right,
then,
but look, here's the thing. I haven't really been trying that much this year. I've been playing a lot more new games. I've not been setting aside.
And that's the thing.
other
It's
stuff.
like when you sit aside and play new games and stuff, like, the platinum trophies just don't come as quickly. You just,
Sure.
and also life, balancing time
Yeah,
and so
right.
forth. So
Exactly.
it's just hard to develop all that or put in all that work and all that time. What was Dead Space remake? Dead Space was Dead Space
Probably,
before
it was before
or
Skyrim.
it was definitely before Skyrim. I'm trying to remember if it was before Power Wash. I think it was.
Was it?
I think it was. I think it was the first thing I got this year.
I'm not sure it was.
Well, Phil, I'll pull up my PSN profiles account right now while you take us into topic number 4, your second penny of the day.
Sure. Well, we're going to VGC Video Games Chronicle from a story from Mr. Andy Robinson. Looks like Insomniac is working on a third game alongside Spider-Man and Wolverine. It says PlayStation's Insomniac is working on a.
Oh, hold on. Oh, we lost you a little bit. Give me a testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Oh, we're having just a little bit of internet problems, but I think we're okay if you'll want to take that from the PlayStation Insomniac game working on a third unannounced title.
Okay. PlayStation's Insomniac Games is working on a third unannounced title in addition to Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. That's according to a live stream held by the Full Sail University last September, which is just now being circulated on social media. In the stream, project director Aaron Eberhardt claimed they were helming an unannounced project at the studio. Eberhardt previously worked on PlayStation Now at Sony Interactive Entertainment as well as Blizzard's esports initiative. Quote, this is actually my first AAA game project now. I'm the project director here on an unannounced project, unquote. Eberhardt said on the stream, I'm very excited to actually be making the games now. Eberhardt joined Insomniac just before the studio began advertising for a multiplayer project. Insomniac is officially working on a pair of Marvel titles, but it's best known for the Ratchet & Clank series, the last entry of which released in 2021. Outside of those franchises, Insomniac also worked on 2014's Xbox exclusive Sunset Overdrive. In 2021, Sunset Overdrive was successfully registered by Sony at the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Although the trademark registry isn't indicative of any plans to revive the game, it coincided closely with Sunset Overdrive's director rejoining Insomniac the same year.
Interesting stuff.
Could we be seeing more Sunset Overdrive? Maybe as a multiplayer game?
No. Quite simply, no. Not a shot in hell. And then to just revisit it and put it on a cap on it, it looks like my first platinum trophy of the year was The Last of Us Part 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because my last one last year was God of War Ragnarok. And then I played a bunch of Final Fantasy during January. And Last of Us Part 1, I got
I remember
March
you were
9th.
juggling... You were juggling Last of Us Part 1 and Dead Space.
Yes.
So then Last of Us, and then Dead Space.
Yeah. One day apart, those two. March 9th, Last of Us Part 1. March 10th, Dead Space. And then it isn't until April 5th that I do Power Wash Simulator.
Gotcha.
There we go. So, anyways, Insomniac working on a third game, probably a multiplayer game, if we were to sort of kind of tie things together. One, they were, hiring for a multiplayer game. We covered that on the show, I believe. I could be wrong. Could have just been sort of something in the mix there. And just sort of PlayStation's MO right now is sort of a focus on multiplayer. That something like 40-something% of their titles announced are supposed to be multiplayer games. Something like that. I thought it
was higher.
It might have been higher. It might have been like 59 or 60% or some shit like that.
Yeah,
for PlayStation.
They're like going all in.
And we will see how successful that is.
We will see.
We will see. As the Last of Us multiplayer project seems to just, we're gonna put that to the side for right now.
On the shelf.
But here's the thing: I trust Insomniac more than anybody else under the PlayStation Studios banner, and I trust them more to make anything under a multiplayer game more than anybody else, because they have some rudimentary experience with all of this. They've got a little bit of experience making anything in the world, whether it's a VR game, whether it's a Metroidvania 2D game with their what was that game called? It was published by GameStop when GameStop was trying to publish games. Song of the Deep, I want to say it was called. Something like that.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Hang on.
Yeah, I never played it, and I don't even know if I know what the game looks like. But I know that was a game that they put out in like 2014, I want to say. And then 2016?
Yeah.
Damn, same year as a fucking Ratchet and Clank game. Anyways, Sunset Overdrive, I think at best what we're getting is a remaster. At best. That's the most we're getting.
Is it going to be PlayStation exclusive though?
Yes. Because I don't see why they wouldn't. Everyone's playing hardball with their exclusives these days. So, it would make sense of like, hey, your remaster of an Xbox exclusive game is coming to PlayStation. That was an exclusive. Oh, man, what a headache. Anyways, I think really what this when you think of a multiplayer game, games as service, live service games and so forth, you really want to do it with established IPs. Which means, to me, this comes down to Spider-Man or Ratchet. Which of those two are getting a multiplayer title? Or just some type of Marvel title as a whole. But I think Spider-Man makes sense, especially with how popular Spider-Man is with the whole multiverse stuff. And I can totally see a craft your own Spider-Man costume type mechanic swing around.
I was going to say you're going to dig into your Greg Miller bag here and talk about how he's talking about the Spider-Verse game. Yeah,
sure. But I mean, the simple truth of the matter is that this could be fucking anything. I think it's just it would be ridiculous of them to not follow up on mechanics already established, on IP already established, and big sellers that have already been established. Ratchet and Clank is Insomniac's bread and butter, has been for 20 plus years at this point.
Insane, yeah.
Yeah, so there's just really no point to move away from that. I think that would totally make sense. Maybe they bring the Deadlocked titling back, and Ratchet and Clank Deadlock, and you can play with 4 friends as you do a bunch of multiplayer weird stuff or something, and they cycle you through a bunch of environments like that in some sort of weird mix between Ratchet and like a Destiny clone of some kind, maybe. Or like a Division clone of some kind, but like with Ratchet gameplay and makings, that would be kind of weird and interesting. I'd be kind of sort of into that, or I'd at least be into like seeing what that looks like. But I think what everybody wants is some type of fucking Spider-Man multiplayer game. We want to swing around with our friends and do missions and stuff. I'm not talking an open world. I'm talking a way pared down, like maybe some hub areas that you can run around and explore in and do your own thing.
Right.
But for the most part, it's going to be probably enclosed areas with invisible walls and stuff of like, hey, man, you can only swing around here. Here's the mission. Here's where we're going and so forth like that. That probably makes the most sense to me. Phil, how are you feeling? Where are you thinking with this?
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. They've already done like Ratchet and Clank multiplayer stuff. Like I think there was some co-op that you could do in Deadlocked. There was the like PvP that was in, I think, starting in Up Your Arsenal. Where if
Yeah.
you had the PlayStation like wireless adapter, you could
Yeah, you could do multiplayer matches and so forth,
multiplayer
and
on
you
there.
can play it. You can play it locally, like
Split screen, yeah.
and stuff like that. Yeah. And then there was All for One
Yeah, that was a cooperative
thing.
thing, yeah.
And again, Ratchet has been a test bed. They've been experimenting with Ratchet's formula forever.
True.
You know, so
That's
why not?
that's
do it
been
some more?
Insomniac's kind of like you said, test bed. Like they use that for that IP for trying new things. And I'm not against it. I like that we have all this Ratchet and Clank love. I just wish most of it was better.
Rift Apart was great.
Rift Apart was fantastic, but that wasn't that was just a classic RNC title. You know, it wasn't like some kind of spin-off like All for One or what was that? There was like a mobile game they had, right?
There's a Ratchet game for whatever you want there to be a Ratchet game for.
Yeah, there was also
Fuse?
like
Remember Fuse? Probably not. Fuse was a PS3 and Xbox 360 game published by EA. And it was a mess of a multiplayer cooperative game where I think Insomniac had like a lot of big ideas for it, but
oh my
EA
god,
kept
I do remember this.
EA kept paring it back and sort of doing it whatever was popular at the time. So there was a lot of like chest high walls and like fucking like ammo counts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was like very like Gears of War-y. It wasn't very good.
I do remember this. I never played it, but I remember seeing stuff about it.
Me and Connor rented it one day because that used to be our thing. You know, when we were young, we'd go over to each other's houses, hang out, and like, hey, let's go to the family video and rent a game. We usually rented Fear 3 because that was just sort of our co-op game that we just played again and again. Fear 3, not a great game, but a fun time.
For threer.
For threer. But we did rent Fuse one time. And I think we played about an hour. And we were like, this game kind of sucks. And we moved on.
Blows.
Yeah, we were like, this is not fun. Like, it was definitely you having fun? No. You? Absolutely not. Let's move on.
This game has given me a short fuse.
Yeah, right? So, Insomniac has experience in this arena. You know? And, with Bungie sort of like heading up all of the PlayStation multiplayer efforts, I could see how you give a little mixture of this, you give a little sprinkle of that, and I could see how you could have an interesting game here.
Spider-Man crossed with Destiny
of some kind, something. It would be interesting, to say the least. And I mean that's sort of my ethos on PlayStation's multiplayer efforts as of right now. We've seen no fruits of this labor yet. And I'm excited for none of it. None of it I'm excited for. I was moderately excited for what the Last of Us multiplayer game was going to be, but mostly just because I enjoyed factions from the first game, and I wanted more of that. Or I wanted some sort of, like, you could imagine a Division Dark Zone mode of some kind working really well for The Last of Us as an IP. You could imagine that. You could imagine these things. But it sounds like Bungie was like, hey, this game, like, sure, it's cool, but it's not going to last. Fun. It's not going to last, Like, it's just, like... And I'm sure there was fun in the game, but it was a spend a couple of weekends with your friends playing it, not
right.
dump a year or 2 or 3 into it as, like, a games of service model. So,
sure.
Whether that game ever sees the light of day, who knows? But, yeah, as of right now, with the entire movement towards multiplayer games... I'm tentatively... How many T's can I put into that word? I'm tentatively curious about it. I'm not excited about any of it, but I'm curious about it.
Yeah, I don't think I can say I'm really excited for any of it either. I'm not that... I used to be a huge multiplayer guy. I still like multiplayer, but I think I see myself playing either like couch co-op games or just single player like a lot more.
Yeah, and I've kind of gotten to that just because it's just like I don't always have time to set up days to play with my friends, and with playing alone doesn't always scratch that itch. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. But I often to me, it's like, all right, I'll spend a couple of weekends, circulating in a multiplayer game. We dabbled with some Halo Infinite earlier this year, and that was a lot of fun. But
it was a lot of fun.
It's just sort of a thing of like, all right, well, I'm not like actively just playing this for fun. I'm moving on to the next thing. And that's just sort of my thing. But if it were in the PlayStation ecosystem, would I stay on longer? Because it would be on my dashboard. I don't know. I haven't played that much Street Fighter 6 or Diablo 4 lately, even though I would like to get back to both of those games. But, I've got Disney Illusion Island to get to, Phil.
I've got Final Fantasy 16 to finish. I've got Pikmin 4 to start. I've got Like a Dragon Ishin that I want to scratch the itch for my fucking Yakuza itch.
Yep.
I have Jedi Survivor.
Oh god, you gotta play Jedi Survivor. Jedi Survivor has the best combat of the year. Easy, not even close.
Yeah, I just have so much. I just have so many games that I need to go to that I'm just I don't know. And then me and Ash are playing the Sackboy Adventure game.
Yeah, I still have that on my console. I haven't touched it in months. But yeah, I mean, this is the thing: is that these games are not fighting for attention or love or $60, $70. What they're fighting for is time. And there's not enough to go around for everybody. So PlayStation, you're diving in this deep, but you should probably start smaller. It made
Probably
sense.
just dip your toes in a little bit.
It made sense when you were like, hey, we're going to have Naughty Dog put out a game and see what that does. We're going to have Insomniac develop a game and see what that does. And hey, we're going to buy 1 or 2 studios. And their purpose is that. But when you start making all of your studios do this, like if I see a Sony Santa Monica multiplayer game, I'm going to fucking lose my shit.
That's wild.
Santa Monica has tried multiplayer before. It's not their thing.
God of War Battle Royale.
There was multiplayer in God of War Ascension. And
I know that.
People didn't like it.
What kind of multiplayer was it?
I think it was a PvP mode. I have no idea.
What?
I didn't play the game. But yeah, I think it was
so weird.
I think it was like a fight your friends type thing. And
that was the PSP game? Yeah.
No, that's the PlayStation 3 prequel game.
Oh, I thought it was on PSP.
Nope. No, yeah, PSP games were Chains of Olympus and
That's what it was.
Chains of Olympus and something else. What was the other one called? I don't remember. I'm drawing a blank. But yeah, Ascension was the PS3 game that had a multiplayer mode that nobody liked. But that was also in the era of like
Ghost of Sparta.
Ghost of Sparta, that's what it is. I knew there was something with an S in it somewhere.
You're welcome.
That was of the era of like every game had a sort of shoved in multiplayer mode. You're looking at like the Tomb Raider reboot had a multiplayer mode that was okay-ish. You had a bunch of like okay-ish modes, which is also how Naughty Dog got their base. Like Uncharted 2 had multiplayer that was okay-ish, and then it got a little better with 3, and then it got and then Factions I think is their best multiplayer outing so far. But Uncharted 4 had a decent-ish multiplayer. It was fun.
I was gonna say, wasn't the Tomb Raider multiplayer and the Uncharted multiplayer pretty similar?
Yeah, kind of. They had different things. Uncharted 2's multiplayer, everyone had base loadout, and you would run out and find guns in the field, sort of like Halo styled. And Tomb Raider had custom classes.
Okay.
That you would develop into. Now, I'm trying to remember. I think Uncharted 3 had loadouts you could select from, but they were pre-made loadouts. And then Uncharted 4 has full-on custom classes.
Okay.
So, it's a development thing. And then Last of Us had loadouts that you could develop and so forth. But they had like the I don't know if Call of Duty still does this, but like Black Ops 2 had like points that you could acclimate, and it was like, hey, this gun costs this many points, this perk costs this many points, and you only have so many to use, or something like that. Last of Us Factions had something like that in it, where it was like you had 12 points, these perks cost 3 or 4, this gun costs 2 or 3, so on and so forth. We're just in the super weeds of the past things right now. Essentially, I'd like to see a multiplayer game from Insomniac, sure, just because their pedigree speaks for themselves. More of their games are bangers than not. Even if you go to olden times with PS2 and PS3 generation, like they got more bangers than they don't. Even though I'm not a huge fan of them in the PS3 generation, I'm not a Resistance guy, but people did like Resistance, and I never played any of the Ratchet games of that era. So,
yeah, all right, well, that's
ladies and gentlemen,
about all I have. Yeah,
that is going to be it for the Two Penny Gamescast this week. That is it for the news. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Remember, you can get this show every Monday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. Make sure to like, subscribe, share with a friend, drop in the comments some pennies, some 2 cents of your own, and let us know what you think about all of the happenings in the industry, or just general topic discussions you want to talk to us about. I've been Tavin, that's been Phil, and until next time, have a great time, and Phil, say goodbye to the people.
See you.